Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the NetSuite User Group webinar series we are hosting with GDS and Avalara. My name is Matthew Maddox, and I'm the President of Global Data Services. We are NetSuite Alliance and SDN partner based in St. Louis, Missouri. We have clients around the world. I have over 20 years of experience in enterprise technologies, and I enjoy nothing more than helping organizations continue to automate businesses and help to scale them and continue to be more efficient. I wanted to introduce you, if you're not aware, about our on-site app that's built for NetSuite. It's the ultimate field service platform built for NetSuite. When we built it, we kept the customer in mind, and we want you to be sure that you can achieve all of your tax compliancy and any other compliancy you have. We've partnered with Avalara to provide a seamless solution. On-site's not only been designed to gather all the necessary data in real time, but it makes your workers more capable because they have the data they need in their fingertips at the time they need it. This includes field service agents, mobile sales, and project staff, as well as delivery workers. They can easily not only input data, but also update information on the go without any delays or errors. With our platform, you can ensure that all the required tax-related data is also being accurately collected and written back to NetSuite in real time. Once that data is in NetSuite, you're probably wondering what happens with it. That's where Avalara comes in. Our integration with Avalara allows for a real-time calculation of both taxes on the back end, which means that once your mobile workers have completed their tasks, all their tasks at hand, all the tax calculations are automatically done by Avalara on the back end, which they will discuss further. I'm going to turn this over to Kelly from Avalara, and he'll be able to talk in more detail.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kelly Davis with Avalara. We're going to be covering about different ways that Avalara helps reduce your sales tax risk and how it works great with the on-site solution from GDS. A little bit about myself. I've been doing this for nearly a decade, working with many Fortune 1000 companies, and have a vast amount of experience helping companies reduce their sales tax risk. A little bit about Avalara as a company. We're about 5,000 employees strong. We're a worldwide globalization, and we've been on operation for nearly 20 years. To kind of give you a little scope of the vast amount that we help businesses, we deal with nearly 4 billion tax calculations a year. We manage over 30 million exemption or resale documents to be able to help make sure businesses stay exempt from sales tax and not build up tax liability. And we deal with over 5 million sales tax returns on an annual basis for the companies that we help with. The first thing to be able to help reduce sales tax risk is to know where you have Nexus and how it affects your business. Not a lot of people are familiar with the term Nexus, and so the first thing we want to do is go over the understanding. A very realistic example is that majority of you will probably are sitting in a chair right now and will have Nexus to your chair, just as I myself have Nexus with my chair. Sales tax Nexus is a little bit different, but it's a way that you're connected to a state and where you have to collect and remit sales tax. So as you have Nexus with your chair, a business would have Nexus with a state, usually in a state that they operate into. Now, there's numerous ways that you can have Nexus or that you can trigger Nexus. One of them being that you have, like I said, a physical location there. You also have remote employees that can trigger Nexus in a state. In some states, when you store actual inventory that you own, that will create Nexus. Some states have certain thresholds. Some states are a little bit different. In other states, not actually having any of your employees or physical workers there won't trigger it. But if you have someone that's an affiliate that's doing business on your behalf, some states that will trigger Nexus for yourself. Also, in a unique part, in some states where you actually go and attend a trade show, if you go too many times, some states it says, hey, if you go 2 or 3 times within a calendar year, that creates Nexus. A big portion of what started making businesses more aware of sales tax and more complicated is that back in 2018, when the Supreme Court ruled in a case with Wayfair in South Dakota, they created economic nexus. This is probably the one that most businesses is newer to most businesses, and there's a harder time understanding. So to give you an idea of the complexity around that, we have 3 states that are located next to each other, and each of these three states have different standards of what creates economic nexus, or I should say different laws of what creates economic nexus. In the state of Mississippi, if you do 250,000 in sales within a calendar year, that creates sales tax. Doesn't matter if it's a taxable sale or if an exempt sale, or if you're dealing with a wholesale, selling to a distributor. It's just simply 250,000. Once you cross that threshold, you're there. In Alabama, it's a similar situation, but it's only on taxable sales. If you're dealing with wholesale transactions, that doesn't count towards that threshold. Again, adding to the complexity. In Georgia, it's completely different. You can have simply 100,000 in taxable sales or exempt sales, but not wholesales, or 200 separate transactions, whichever one happens first, that will create nexus. And so out of all 50 states or 46 that charge sales tax or have sales tax, each state does it a little bit different, adding some complexity of it. And so first, knowing if you have nexus in a state is going to be the #1 important thing. And now, importantly, not simply knowing that you had nexus doesn't protect you from sales tax risk. If you trigger nexus in the state of Colorado 3 years ago and have been doing business within the state and sales, and you simply didn't know, but the state of Colorado finds out and audits you, you're still on the hook of all that back taxes that are owed. That 3 years worth of sales tax you should have been collecting, they're still going to want that tax with penalty and interest included. And so not being aware and just putting your head in the sand is not an excuse that works under audit. And so it's important to, #1, to know and look at where you should be collecting and remitting sales tax. Now, if you have been creating nexus a while back and weren't aware of it, there are states or there are processes to be able to go ahead and get that cleaned up so you have a clean slate going forward. But that's the first thing that you'll want to do. Second thing is, now that you have sales tax and that you have nexus and you are registered to collect and remit sales tax, you need to stay compliant. This is going to be a critical part in our step #2 of staying to reducing sales tax risk. Avalara has all sorts of resources to be able to help you do that. One of the complexities and the issues with that is that it's so hard to be able to stay compliant. Every state has different rates of what they charge. They have different sourcing rules of what rate you use. Is it the rate of the location of where you delivered the good or service, or is it back where it came from, maybe where you're headquartered? Also, the taxability of a product is different for every state. There's all sorts of caveats and things that you need to be aware of in order to make sure that it's accurate. And it's not only just the 46 states. Some states have certain cities or counties that have different tax laws than what they do at the state level, even adding to the complexity of that. So Avalara helps in many different ways. We look at all different aspects of a transaction. There's kind of about 9 or so that we actually specifically look at. There's a few more, but in this slide, we're going to cover the 9 and what we do in a very quick and real-time situation. First is the customer is going to purchase the product. We're going to take that transaction address and validate it. Is it the right address? Is it a true address? We'll make any corrections that need to do at that time. We then look at the sourcing rules, where the product's coming from or service and where it's going to. Certain locations, you might use the product that the tax rate of where it came from. In other situations, going across states or even within states, it'll be within. So we take that into consideration. Then we look at the jurisdictions that are applied to it. We have certain state rates, we have county rates, we have certain city tax rates that all need to be combined in order to get that. Then in some jurisdictions or some states, you have unique jurisdictions. Like in Colorado, you'll have police jurisdictions that have their own unique rates that need to be compiled into this. So assigning the right jurisdiction is a very key part. So that way you also know where that tax revenue needs to go back to. Once that's done and all those regulations are applied, we also look at the exempt status of that transaction. Is there an exempt entity that's purchasing this product or service that doesn't have to pay sales tax? You need to make sure you have the right paperwork to be able to make sure that you're not adding tax liability to that. We'll then look at the taxability of the product or service that you're offering within that jurisdiction, and is it taxable? Sometimes there's also tax holidays on top of that. A product that's normally taxable might be exempt for a short window simply to provide incentives that the state offers. Lastly, we'll then put all that information, do all that calculation, then we'll put it on the invoice for you. So that way, you know, if it was a $10 transaction that you might need to collect whatever the compile it is, let's say it's 70 cents of sales tax. We then store all that transactional information, not only in your ERP system, being NetSuite, but we also keep it in our back end. So that way we know where that sales tax revenue needs to come to. So that's a key part in making sure that all that is done correctly. Of course, with Avalara, we automate that whole process so you don't have to. If not, it's a lot of steps to have to do to make sure you do sales tax right. Another major portion of that is to be able to go ahead and manage your exempt certificates. A lot of customers, they will be selling directly to an exempt entity, whether the example be a nonprofit like the Red Cross, or a government entity like a local city or state entity. Or you might even deal with, military, police, all sorts of different things, colleges, universities. In order to eliminate sales tax from that, even though you didn't charge it, you have to have correct paperwork, if audited, that shows that it was an exempt transaction. So we have a software that will be able to help collect that, make that request to that legal entity and say, we need this appropriate paperwork. Customer is able to fill it out online digitally. We'll be able to utilize our AI to be able to validate that it is correctly filled out, make sure that the right form is selected. And then we'll be able to manage that on your behalf. That is not only if it's in that particular state that the transaction happened to, but if there's multiple states that they're exempt, we'll be able to maintain all that paperwork. We keep it in a secured system in the cloud, so that way you have access to it and it's not getting into inappropriate hands. Some of those forms, they need to be renewed at different time periods. Some are every year, like in Florida, if you have a resale certificate. Others in Texas, you might never have to renew it. Each state and jurisdiction is going to be different. We keep on top of all that, help you automate the renewal of these certificates. And then, of course, if you're ever audited, you have quick access to them to be able to get the correct forms, or to get the forms, which will be correct, to the auditor, and only the ones that the auditor is requested. So a big portion now that you have done this and you have Nexus everywhere is to be able to make sure that you're handling the transactions on a daily basis correctly. With Avalara, we'll be able to help do that within the on-site system. Because of our integration, they're able to pass along all the information. It doesn't matter if it's at an address that you have built into the system, but we also do it longitude, latitude, so we can go wherever the customer is or your transaction is at. We'll be able to make sure that the transaction is done correctly and that there's no tax liability being built up. Once that is all done, we need to automate it and make sure that it's correct and done throughout an ongoing period. And that's where Avalara comes in with our integration into NetSuite as we partner with GDS. Is that we'll be able to take all that transaction information, automate that process. Doesn't matter what you're using, we'll be able to make sure that it gets done, keep it up to date, and keep it real time. So that way, as things continue to progress, as states change the taxability of the products or services, as states change the rates that the tax rates that they're using, we stay up on top of that all real time. And so that way you don't ever have to deal with that. Just know that you can relax and be at ease for that. It's a great feature that we offer, and we're very excited for the partnership and the integration we have with Global Data Services and be able to do this with them. So one of the great things that we have that we all want to offer to you is that we do have a free sales tax risk assessment that you'll be able to get access to for attending this webinar. That will allow you to know that to fill it out very simply, upload your transactional data information, answer a few questions, and with that, we'll be able to know whether you've collected tax everywhere that you need to, or if there's states that you need to clean up with. And so with that, we'll turn the time over back to Matthew.
Thank you. With NetSuite, GDS Onsite, and Avalara, you can trust that your taxes will accurately be calculated and compliance will be maintained without the need for manual data entry or tedious calculations. We understand how important it is for businesses to stay on top of their tax obligations. That's why we've developed a solution that not only simplifies the process, but also ensures accuracy and reliability. Thank you for attending today's webinar. Please feel free to reach out with any questions you have, and please be on the lookout for the next webinar we are hosting in early January. Thanks again, everyone.